The first round of the 2024 NFL Draft is officially in the books with plenty of surprises per usual, but the Bills are on the clock at number 33. Welcome to my second round mock draft. I think I did pretty well in the first round, nailing at least a lot of the player to team fits, including Xavier Worthy and other ones, Amarius Mims, and then of course the ones at the top. But yeah, very unpredictable year this year. Some of them obviously make a lot of sense, but then you had some huge surprises we'll talk about in future videos. But let's get right into it. We have the Buffalo Bills at 33. Adonai Mitchell fell out of the first round. I still feel like he, of the available receivers, has the highest chance to be a wide receiver one type player in the NFL. And I think the Bills, after trading down multiple times, would be pretty happy to take him there at number 33. I do think he is right up there for best player available. I did rank Cooper DeJean slightly higher, but if you're drafting him as a safety, well, safeties just happen to fall in the draft. So that's why a player like Cooper DeJean is still available. Jerzon Newton, I think, is an incredible player as well. I don't think these guys are going to last very long tomorrow. I'll be live here on YouTube again, by the way. YouTube.com/Bengal, right where you're watching. It's an hour earlier compared to tonight as I record this. Patriots on the clock at 34. It's got to be Ladd McConkey, right? You take Drake May at number 1. Your receiver room is horrendous. Ladd McConkey, I thought, was an easy top, 35 player in this draft. He's available at 34. You need receiver desperately. He's a great route runner with great speed and great hands. He is an awesome player that really could have got into the first round. He's available here at 34. I think it makes sense to provide Drake May, new Patriots quarterback, with an actual player to throw to, not a long list of them in New England. And even if the list is long, it's not super talented, unfortunately, for new Patriots quarterback Drake May. Cardinals at 35. Very active first round, taking Marvin Harrison Jr. and Darius Robinson. But you still need help on the O-line. You still need help in the secondary. The Cardinals are poised to upgrade a lot of these different positions, though, because of all of their top picks. Of course, you have 3 in the top 35. You have another pick at the top of the third round. I think even maybe multiple third-round picks as well. They're in a great spot overall. So what do you do here at 35? Well, you got a couple of really good players still available. And I think the Cardinals might opt to go with Kool-Aid McKinstry here out of Alabama. Really, really solid player. Patient in coverage, long enough arms to be effective in press coverage as well. But I especially love his patience as a zone defender. He's not going to let you beat him with double moves. He's going to keep you in front. He's not going to overreact. He's a solid player. Commanders at 36. I think this is a really good spot where we might consider taking a player like Cooper DeJean for them, because they could use safety, they could use corner. Cooper DeJean kind of goes into either one of those slots. DeJean, I think, can stick at corner, but might just be best as a safety. So instinctive, such a good tackler. Maybe is able to affect the game more as a nickel corner. Now, I know they drafted Quan Martin a year ago to play the nickel, but Cooper DeJean could maybe move back to safety. You lose Cam Curl, DeJean could be a really nice replacement at free safety. Chargers at 37. Got Jim Harbaugh. Of course, they did what we thought they were going to do, which is taking O-line at 5 and not taking a receiver. And I'll tell you what, I don't know that Jim Harbaugh can stay away from the Michigan men. And Junior Colson, to me, is a top 30 player in this draft. I really, really like him. I think he's the clear LB1 in this group. And really, the only guy available here with true Mike capabilities that I feel good about in this draft. Like, Edgerrin Cooper's a will. Peyton Wilson's got the injury stuff, but I guess you could probably try him at Mike. Trotter, but he's just not good enough in space. Eichenberg, definitely not. Junior Colson, I think, is like sticking out like a sore thumb in terms of not only best player available for me, but for a position of need and the Michigan fit with Jim Harbaugh. I just think that's a clear and obvious fit there for the Chargers. Titans at 38. Johnny Newton's available, man. You needed to improve your pass rush in this draft. And if you look at their defensive line, interior D-line is a big problem outside of Jeffrey Simmons. Yeah, you're fine at nose maybe, but Simmons needs somebody on the other side of that nose tackle to really make a difference. And Johnny Newton is a really, really good player that's still available. I think the Titans need to upgrade their interior defensive line. Johnny Newton is the guy for the job. As we get to the Panthers at 39. So, you move up for Xavier Legette, one pick into the first round. And I'll tell you, that's an interesting thing because, Legette comes out and says, yeah, I mean, the Panthers told me if I'm there at 33, they're picking me. And I don't know if he was supposed to say that. Dave Canales, the new head coach of the Panthers, comes out and says, oh, we told everybody that. Told 50 other guys that. I don't think he did. I think the Panthers started to get a little bit worried. He was available at 32. They're like, all right, we're just going up. We're getting him. We're making sure. I don't think they told 50 other players that. Maybe a few others, right? But I think they were always planning on taking Legette, and I didn't want to end up looking silly. So they got the player they wanted. Now they pick again. And center supposedly is a need, but I don't really know that it is. Austin Corbett expected to move to center. Now, you could have an insurance policy, but he's been a pretty good lineman. I know not at center, but do you take Jackson Powers Johnson here? You could, but you could also very easily choose to go in a different direction. And I don't know how you could fault them for that. I don't think it's a receiver. I do think you need to protect Bryce Young. I do think you need to get him some more weapons as well. I'll tell you, I mapped this out already. I have them going Jackson Powers Johnson here. I'm not sure it ends up being the pick, but it's the pick that makes the most sense. A falling player in the draft that's still really, really good at a potential position of need, and you can never have too much depth on the offensive line. So, continuing the theme of building around Bryce Young, Jackson Powers Johnson ends up being the guy center out of Oregon. Could even play guard in a pinch as well, but of course spent a lot of money to bring in some new guards. So, if there's an injury, that's your backup plan, but he could compete to start at center. That's what we're working with there for the Panthers. At number 40, have the Commanders back up. Of course, took Cooper DeJean moments ago. And this is one I kind of struggled on because, they need offensive line help. But of the available offensive linemen, who do I feel good about them taking here? It's likely going to be a tackle if they were to. Kingsley Suamataia, I think, is the one that stands out the most. Roger Rosengarten, potentially. Patrick Paul, potentially. Pooney's more of a guard. Kieran Amagaji's a bit of a project, but seems a bit early, but I suppose it's possible with the run on offensive linemen that we've seen in this draft so far. They need edge, but I just don't feel good enough about any of these edge rushers going especially high in the draft. So, puts me in a bit of a tough spot with figuring out what exactly the Commanders would be looking to do. And they got a lot of picks as well. This was another team I thought might have decided to move back into the first round with all of their picks in this draft. They didn't do it. And we'll see if there's any movement tomorrow if they want to just secure grabbing the player they want. Wouldn't really be taking a safety with the addition of Cooper DeJean. That's kind of what we're thinking is he's going to move back to safety. Feels a little bit early for a tight end. I'm going to go Kingsley Suamataia. He's got big-time potential. He can play right tackle and left tackle. Really, really good athlete. Cousin of Penei Sewell. Fun fact there. But really, really solid player that I think would be a good fit with the Commanders as more of a developmental piece that could end up starting at some point, obviously. If you're taking him at 40, you want him to end up being a starter. Doesn't always work out for these second-round picks, even though we see all these great players still available. They don't all work out, obviously. At number 41, we have the Green Bay Packers. In the first round, they took Jordan Morgan. Somewhat surprising, right? Goody's MO, Brian Gutekunst, the GM of the Packers, just hasn't really been taking offensive line all that high. And if you're drafting Jordan Morgan, is it as a guard? Or do you intend on him still playing tackle? I don't know. It's a really interesting situation because you have Zach Tom, obviously. You have Rasheed Walker. Maybe Walker becomes your sixth offensive lineman. Maybe he's a swing tackle if there's an injury. Maybe Morgan ends up playing guard and replaces John Runyon Jr. I'm not really sure what the exact plan is for Morgan. Maybe you stick him at left tackle until it doesn't work, and then Walker's back out there and Morgan plays inside. I'm not really sure what the plan is. We're going to find out more, obviously, in the coming days, weeks, months, and down the line. But for the Packers, linebacker is kind of standing out to me as a position of need. And Edgerrin Cooper feels like a really good pick for them. Now, in the mock I had Jaden Hicks going. But I'm not sure you need to press and take a safety here. With Junior Colson already off the board, the Packers pick again at 58. A decent enough safety is going to get to that spot. I'm not sure that Edgerrin Cooper is going to get anywhere close to that pick. I had him going to the Texans at 42 with the next selection. But Edgerrin Cooper, I think, makes more sense to the Packers with this pick. Great in space, great blitzer, phenomenal speed in pursuit. He's a pretty good player. And I thought there was a chance he could sneak into the first round as well. Ends up getting to the second, which is not a huge surprise with these linebackers. Cooper goes at 41 to the Packers. Feels like a very Packers pick. And he's a good player, though. Texans at 42. I look at boundary corner as an overwhelming need at this point. And there are some really good ones that fell. Ennis Rakestraw Jr., Kamari Lassiter. That's the direction I'm going. Ennis Rakestraw also could have been a first-round pick. The corners fall a little bit. He's available in the second. Some injury concerns with him, but really competitive. Of the players available, he probably has the best chance to stick on the outside of Sainer still is a slot. I'm not a huge TJ Tampa guy. I could see him being good in the correct scheme, of course. He's got great size. He's good in zone coverage, but maybe a press bail guy would be his best method of covering receivers. But what if he goes to a scheme that doesn't prioritize that? Maybe not a great spot. But if you're drafting him, you have a plan for him. Probably not too much of an issue. Kamari Lassiter's an outside guy. Max Melton and Andrew Phillips could stick on the outside, but might be best in the slot, especially Phillips. But they could stick on the outside. Jackson and Green are outside guys, but I don't think they're going to go in this range. Melton could, but I don't think Jackson does. And then with the Falcons at 43, first round, I'll talk about this in an upcoming video. This was the shock of all time for me. Michael Penix Jr. at 8. I couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. We'll talk about that more with the most shocking picks. Ranking every team in the first round as well. These are all going to be videos coming out. But Falcons at 43, you need help on the D-line. You need help in the secondary. Again, I just don't feel super strongly about the available edge rushers. You could go Penn State across your defensive line, Adisa Isaac, Arnold Ebiketie, grab somebody else in there down the board. I can't really think of any Penn State interior defensive linemen in this class, so might see more next year, but no one particularly stands out in this class. But I like the idea of keeping Kamari Lassiter in Georgia. I think he's a top 50 player, can play on the outside. The Falcons need help at corner. Yes, I totally understand drafting a Braden Fisk here, or Chris Jenkins, Brandon Dorless. Some really good interior defensive linemen still on the board, but I think the Falcons, with Kamari Lassiter there might choose to go in a different direction. The Las Vegas Raiders could be a team to watch for a trade up tomorrow. We expected them to come out of the first round with a quarterback, even though I didn't have it in my final mock. Just because I didn't think Penix and Bo Nix would be first round picks. I thought it was more smokescreen than anything else, and I was wrong. But not wrong about the Raiders needing a quarterback. And the best one on the board is Spencer Rattler. I think he could go up and end up being a top 50 pick. And the thing about Rattler, it's easy to remember him in Oklahoma the way it's easy to remember Bo Nix at Auburn. Not a great player at Oklahoma. And obviously, if you watch the QB1 Under the Lights reality TV show, Rattler was a little shithead. No way around it. Apparently has really matured since then. And the arm talent is still amazing. He was great last year at South Carolina, especially with the deep ball. Of the available QBs, he has the best chance to be a starter. Spencer Rattler, it gives you a nice foil to Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. What I mean by that, someone with a differing skill set. Those guys are solid, dependable, not great arms, but decent enough accuracy and experience with Gardner Minshew. Rattler has the big time arm, and the potential is absolutely there. For all the reasons you might like Michael Penix Jr., Spencer Rattler is similarly skilled throwing the football. As crazy as it may sound to say that. Saints at 45. Saints, of course, drafted an offensive lineman. We knew they needed to. Talisa Fuanga of Oregon State. Still have quite a few needs. When I looked at the Saints, I really think they need to build it through the trenches. I thought that, and I still do. And I think there's a chance they double up on offensive linemen here, but I think it's more likely they head to the defense side of the ball and try to upgrade their atrocious pass rush. And I think Marshawn Nealand feels like a Saints type of a player when you look at what they've drafted in the past with a guy like Peyton Turner, right? Marshawn Nealand is 6'3", 275 pounds, can set the edge, and is a relentless pass rusher. You're hoping he obviously develops a bit more than Peyton Turner and Isaiah Foskey, but Nealand has very nice potential and is a high motor guy. Just need to develop him the way you were not able to with some of those other pass rushers, but he feels like the mold that the Saints quite like. Colts at 46. Thought they needed a corner or a wide receiver in the first round, and they had good ones available. They opted to go for Leatu Latu. I cannot fault that. It surprised me. He's my favorite player in the draft. Love Leatu Latu, and they needed to upgrade their pass rush as well. But now at 46, you can maybe go for a corner or a wide receiver, and you have two really, really athletic corners still available, Andrew Phillips, Max Melton. The MO for Chris Ballard is taking athletes. And Max Melton and Andrew Phillips certainly check off those boxes at positions of need. And I think they have chances to be really good, other than just being athletic. Max Melton, I think, could be a top 50 pick, and I think he will be the selection here for the Colts if it ends up looking like this. It's an interesting one. They need safety as well, but I don't see one being drafted there. Maybe Javon Bullard. I don't really see Newbin at that spot. Maybe Jaden Hicks could be a great selection for the Colts there as well. And I also think the Giants could really consider a safety in this range if Jaden Hicks is available. If Javon Bullard is available, right? You got some good safeties still available. Kalen Bullock is very good over the top, as is Dadrian Taylor-Demerson. What do I do for the Giants here? I had Christian Haynes in my first mock, and it'd be a nice upgrade for the Giants to just get an actual really good guard in the mix. John Runyon Jr. is going to play right guard, I think, though, and Christian Haynes is a right guard. Maybe that would stop you from doing that at this point. And there are some great guards down the board. I think Dominic Pooney could end up being a pretty high draft pick, and he's likely to play left guard. I think the Giants might opt to pass over offensive line in this scenario and go for the safety in Jaden Hicks from Washington State. Great in the box, athletic enough to play over the top. Arguably the best true safety in this class. Jaden Hicks ends up being my pick to the Giants there, although I could see so many different things. I could end up seeing a quarterback if Rattler's there, or maybe they reach on Michael Pratt. Don't like the look of many other QBs. The fall off is immeasurable. It's huge. Obviously, the offensive line makes sense. Corner makes sense. Safety makes sense. Defensive line, at least with the interior guys. All of these would make sense. I'm really excited to see what the Giants do tomorrow. Multiple picks, and we'll see what happens. Jaguars at 48 took Brian Thomas Jr., and I think corner still remains a big need. Now, if you look at Trent Baalke, he is a threshold guy. Your arms need to be long enough. You need to be this fast. You need to be able to jump this high. Andrew Phillips, I think, is going to check off a lot of those boxes with the athleticism. Good speed, exceptional explosiveness. You look at the vert, look at the broad jump, and the tape's really good. He's a really underrated player, and I think top 50 does make sense for Andrew Phillips, as the Jags were not able to go corner in the first round, and they didn't want to. They wanted Brian Thomas Jr., and they got him. Great pick. Great pick for them. Bengals at 49. You got your pick of the interior defensive lineman here. I know edge rusher could be a need with Trey Hendrickson wanting a trade. Braden Fisk makes sense to me. He could be somebody that goes even higher than this. Super explosive interior defensive lineman. Has good size, but the arms are short. But super explosive. Another really high motor guy. Dominated the Senior Bowl. Really like Braden Fisk. Another Western Michigan guy, although he transferred, of course, to FSU. Eagles at 50. This is interesting because I kind of expected them to go offensive line somewhere at the top of the draft. They end up going corner. Shockingly, even though I had them taking Terran Arnold in my final mock, it's like, is Howie Roseman ever actually going to take a corner in the first round? Well, we know they love taking offensive linemen and developing them. Jeff Stoutland University has produced some pretty good offensive linemen. And I think they might end up looking for developmental offensive linemen in this group. Hiran Amagaji makes sense to me. The sky is the limit with him. And if you look at the way Jordan Mailata was developed, Hiran Amagaji, develop him to play right tackle. He's got great size and athleticism, 6'5", 320. Just played at Yale. He was way better than his competition. You're not facing a lot of 6'5", 320-pound tackles in the Ivy League. Just not really a thing. So he's got great potential. If there's ever a team that's going to develop him, the Eagles are one to watch out for. Steelers at 51. They took Troy Fautanu at 20. I imagine to play tackle is my guess. They could move him to guard, figure out tackle later, and then move James Daniels to center. I think that's less likely than him just playing tackle. He's so good. Really, really good player. And 34-inch arms, kind of like that threshold. I think the Steelers could absolutely consider a receiver here. But I think Zach Frazier would be very tempting as a plug-and-play starting center. Real tough. Love Zach Frazier. Wrestling background at center. And if you speak to the toughness, if you're like, oh, what does that mean? This is a guy who at West Virginia broke his leg on the field, and instead of costing West Virginia timeout at the end of the game, crawled off the field, limped off the field on a broken leg so his team could win the game. That feels like a Steeler to me, man. Or give them a chance to win, of course. At 52, we have the Rams. It went Jared Verse early. It's tough for me to believe that they won't go receiver or something on the offensive side of the ball. And Troy Franklin's available. He offers a lot of speed into that offense. And I think stretching out the field for Sean McVay could be a priority. Because speed isn't just what you can do throwing the ball deep. It's the spacing that it gives you. Safety takes a step back. Receivers or corners take a step back because of the speed of the receivers. And that lets Cooper Kupp, if he's healthy and playing, and Puka Nacua feast underneath. And the added benefit of being a big-time deep threat. I know Tutu Atwell, whatever. Troy Franklin feels like he could be a pretty Rams selection there at 52. At 53, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. Back again. I think it could be a linebacker at this point. Peyton Wilson's there. Not going to overthink it. I remember Nakobe Dean falling because of some medical stuff. Maybe Peyton Wilson doesn't even end up going quite this high. But the tape's pretty good. Really good athlete. Eagles need linebacker. The same way they needed corner, and we're like, Howie doesn't take corner in the first round. They need linebacker. Maybe they're just going to do it nowadays, right? We'll see. Browns at 54. I'm going with Keon Coleman, receiver from Florida State. The Browns do need receiver. You can't really say that some of these guys are going to be there long-term like Elijah Moore. But Coleman offers a lot of size, great jump ball ability, and is a top 25 player for me in the class. I know the route running, the separating, maybe a bit of an issue. You got Amari Cooper. I'm not worried about it. Yes, you also have Cedric Tillman, but I think Keon Coleman is a really nice injection of playmaking ability into this offense. At number 55, got the Dolphins. And you lose Christian Wilkins because you're preparing to pay Tua Tagovailoa. That's what it means to me. You got some really nice replacements here. Michael Hall, probably the best pass rusher of this group. Chris Jenkins, probably the best all-around. Dorless has scheme flexibility. Ororo is the best run defender. Going Chris Jenkins here just because I think he's the best player available at the position. And arguably the best player available in the draft for the Dolphins at that point. Cowboys at 56. Let's turn in the card for a running back. We expect them to take a running back. I think it will be with this pick. Is it Jonathan Brooks from Texas? I'm going to give him my RB1 in this draft, Trey Benson, over Jonathan Brooks. I don't have to be sad about a Texas Longhorn going to the Cowboys. As a big Giants and Texas Longhorn fan, if you're curious how that came about. Of course, I'm from New Jersey, grew up a Yankees, Giants fan, New York sports teams, right? But a lot of family who lived in Texas went to Texas and made sure I was a fan from an early age. And then, of course, Texas was really good around that time as well. So they were big fans and making sure that I was. So That's how I grew up a Texas Longhorns fan in New Jersey. A lot of family went there. That's bottom line. And my uncle has season tickets. So if you're going to some of those games, try to find me. Georgia game should be a fun one. But Trey Benson to the Cowboys there. They just need running back and an RB1 type player. That you lose, of course, Tony Pollard. Maybe bring Zeke back. I don't care. Trey Benson, RB1 probably in this draft. Jonathan Brooks maybe would have been. Doesn't quite have the same power element that Benson does, but the injury stuff I'm just a little bit hesitant about, even if he's back for the season, which he will be. I'm just not sure he's the first off the board. Bucks at 57. I think they need to increase their pass rush. And Chris Braswell makes a ton of sense to me. Super great athlete out of Alabama. 6'3", 255. Fits their 3-4 attacking scheme really well. Got to replace Shaq Barrett. Chris Braswell is my idea of that. Packers at 58. Well, we didn't take a safety at 41, but still available at 58. Javon Bullard, Tyler Nubin. Some great picks. I'm going to go Tyler Nubin here. Ball hawking safety. Not the craziest athlete, but great ball skills, and should be a nice combo with Xavier McKinney there in Green Bay. Texans at 59. Second pick here. Of course, first one courtesy of Minnesota. You get a boundary corner in Ennis Rakestraw. Now you're at 59. And this changes things because I originally had the linebacker in Edgerrin Cooper, but I only had a linebacker because it was Edgerrin Cooper, not because he played linebacker. I heard the Texans have a really good connection with Cooper. We'll have to see if that comes to fruition. What would they do instead? Well, I do agree that they need to increase or improve their interior defensive line, and there are some good ones available. So that's probably where I'm going to go with this pick. And if you look at what they currently have there, it's a lot of guys that can stop the run. Bolo Fatukasi, Tim Settle. Also, since when is he Foley? His name is Folorunzo, is it not? He's just going by Foley now? I always called him Folo. Anyway, maybe you guys can't even see that. But Danico Autry is great, but he's old. I think you need to improve the pass rush on the interior, and Michael Hall Jr. can do that out of Ohio State. He's a little bit undersized in terms of being only 6'2", 280, but is a freak pass rusher, and I think he will end up being a day 2 pick. Question is this a bit too high for him? But maybe the best pass rushing interior defensive lineman available. At number 60, Bills back up. Of course, took Adonai Mitchell for their first pick here in the second round in this mock draft. But you're back up with so many different needs. The Bills could do so many things here. And I think just the best player available ends up being Mike Sainristil. Could go earlier than this. He's a slot corner, falls down the board, but he is so good. I loved Brian Branch last year. I really like Mike Sainristil this year. Nickel corners should be valued. Sainristil is great. I don't know where he's going to go, but he's just a great player to add to their defense that needs better players right now. You're not trying to replace Tre'Davious White with this pick or Jordan Poyer. You're just trying to get a better guy in the mix. And Sainristil fits the bill there. Really competitive. He's not going to play safety for you probably. He's not going to play boundary. He's a true slot corner, but is really, really good at that. Lions at 61. Of course, first round went with Terrion Arnold at corner. Still think they need to improve their pass rush. And you could consider going guard here. But I think Adisa Isaac at this point makes sense. Maybe Jonah Ellis. I had him going to the Panthers earlier. I kind of thought like Frankie Louvu replacement in the third round. I think I went to the third round on my first one, but only doing 2 rounds here, or the second round. Lions, I think Adisa Isaac just makes sense. He's a solid player, can compete to start on the outside. Of course, already have Aiden Hutchinson on the other side. Isaac, I think, does probably get into round 2. I don't know why he just feels like a Lion, but he does. Ravens at 62. Well, you took Nate Wiggins. The Ravens did not expect him to be there. Jumped all over it. They know they still need tackle. And you have some good options. I'm going to go Roger Rosengarten to play and start at right tackle. This is a guy who got hyped, and maybe he was even going to end up being a first-round pick. Doesn't get into the first, falls to the end of the second for me. But the Ravens jump all over it, and he can compete to start at right tackle. 49ers were the team that was mocked to get him in the first round for a lot of people. Not for me. But 49ers maybe would have drafted him if he dropped to 63 here, but doesn't end up happening. Of course, Ricky Pearsall, big shock in the first round. Like the player, but it obviously was not something I was ready for at that spot. I don't think anyone was, really. 49ers at 63. They need help in the secondary. They need help on the offensive line. That's really where I'm going with this pick. And the question becomes, do you want to draft a corner, or do you want to improve your offensive line? And I think they're going to value offensive line based on who's available. Christian Haynes could go a lot earlier than this. I originally had him to the Giants at 47. Now falls a bit to 63. It's a great pickup. And we're going to go back-to-back offensive linemen as the Chiefs are up, and there are some really good ones available. In terms of development, like Blake Fisher, Brandon Coleman, really good athletes. Paul has great size. Not sure he's ready to start right away. And then Pooney's probably a guard, as I talked about earlier. Christian Jones, I could see being a starter as well at right tackle. I'm not sure he's going to be somebody that moves over to the left side. I'm going to go with the freak size and pretty good athleticism of Patrick Paul, 6'7", 315. You are headed to the Chiefs. That is my second round mock draft. It was tough to get everybody I wanted into this round. A lot of good players still on the board, but that is it. Hopefully you join me for the stream tomorrow here on this channel, youtube.com/Bengal, and I will see you for that. See you in the next one. Take it easy.